It is 6:30. We'll call a meeting to order and we'll start with the invocation and the pledge. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. We pray for the recovery of those who are missing and the families of lost loved ones due to Hurricane Helene. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is public comment. Ms. Nancy, do we have any comment today?
No, Your Honor.
Item 4 is consent agenda. We don't have items, so we'll skip ahead to item 5, which is new business. Budget adjustment for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. That's the current year, or the year that is ending now. You have in your packets a summary page that goes with the ordinance. The first thing behind your agenda, you'll see the ordinance amending the budget. We're recommending 3 items that need to be changed because of the significant amounts. It's labeled at the top Exhibit A, and it looks like a budget page that you've seen before with blue boxes out the side. So the 3 items that we are recommending need adjustment from a different account are item 100-10-5258 consulting. That line item is overspent by $208,284.69. That's consulting was the payments to Ardura for the comp plan. Hold on, I gotta find the word. So that group under General Fund 100, it's the gray, that total budget for that category is not the word I'm looking for, but it'll come in a minute, of $176,000 for under administration totals is not negative. So we technically don't have to change the budget, but since it's such a significant number and that money was set aside for a specific purpose, we're recommending that we make an adjustment from reserves for $208,284.69 from operating money market account that ends in 897 and ICS City of Simonton account that ends in 209. That would bring the total, the administration total, we'll double check that in a minute to make sure, but we have the administration total is $384,503.03 because we're bringing the money in to bring that balance back up. So it starts out as a positive total for that category. It will remain on a positive total for that category after that transfer. There's a line item above it for human resources and payroll. We're going to come back to that in a minute after we talk about the 3 that we're recommending taking money from different accounts. The next one down under emergency is for capital improvement. That line item is negative $12,799.60. That is related to the civil site design and bid phase of the ARPA project with the City Hall expansion. The recommendation is to transfer $12,799.60 from the City of Simonton Grant Money Market Fund. The account number ends in 889. That would restore the emergency management total for that category to $7,758.73. Currently, it is negative $5,040. So the goal is that those total lines, none of them end the year on the negative. That's why we would make a transfer. And the third item is under facilities, capital improvement. That also is part of the ARPA City Hall expansion and painting. We're recommending an adjustment from reserves from the City of Simonton grant money market, the same account as the above, account ending on 889 of $140,627.35. That brings the facilities totals to positive $44,710.82. Any questions on those three items?
You already know I have questions. I'm looking at the,
I'm so sorry, if you could just hold 1 second.
my question was, why weren't we provided this in our packet so we could study it a little bit more instead of having just a few minutes?
The consultation with the and finance team, this will get finished, making sure that they've been checked and rechecked until today. Did you have one about these three items? I thought I heard you starting to speak up as well.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. So because we went with the 21-cent budget that Courtney did, that's why we have a shortage of $361,711.64.
No, ma'am. This is on the current budget that we're ending the fiscal year now. So the budget we've been operating on all year, it's the end of the year, and it's time to make sure that we don't leave any of those category totals negative.
Okay.
So we're just making the final end of year budget adjustments.
All right. So if we're making these to the end of the year final adjustments, so what does that do with the 21-cent budget that was passed?
It's not really related at this time. So we're spending money from reserves, especially for these three categories that have previously been set aside by previous councils. So we're spending money that's already there for these purposes.
Okay.
And so the money hadn't been previously transferred. It wasn't listed in the budget last year at this time, which is also, I've mentioned before, the reason we added the encumbered amounts this year is because we haven't done it previously, which ends up having us do this 4 items that we know for sure are coming. So it's not related to the new tax rate for the new fiscal. This is closing out the current year.
Okay.
Makes sense? Okay. Courtney, did you have a question related to these three?
So the consulting number here, I'm utilizing, so in the CARES, the most recent actual revenue and expense report that we had received on the 13th of September.
Actually, the financial statement that we're looking at is the latest.
Yeah, but this doesn't list the actual budget, like the whole thing, where we're
It
going
does,
against.
and I have it to show, so maybe,
Well, no,
ask the
no,
question, because
so-
maybe the numbers will match it.
Yeah, I'm sure. So your consulting number of $40,000, and we're adjusting it significantly. In this report, we have, that consulting number is the only one that matches, I'll put it that way. So show me in this budget, because in previous months, we had received the listing for specifically the ARPA grant money that showed the $45,000-ish received on interest, because that was put into a Cedars account, and we bore interest on that $145,000 grant to the tune of that. But you're saying, according to these adjustments, that we not only spent $208 in consulting, $12,800 over in capital improvements, that is on here, but not showing a current, I'm just confused as far as the numbers. The numbers here don't match the numbers here, and I want to make sure because the numbers, your fund numbers match. The budget doesn't. So make me understand that, please.
So the financial report that you're looking at is out of date because additional bills have been paid, additional income has come in. So you need the most up-to-date numbers for money that's going in and that's going out, which you have some of that attached. I only included the pages that are expenditures because that's what we're talking about for budget adjustment. 42, I'm trying to follow the 42,000. So this budget line that we're talking about is under administration consulting, line 100-10-5258. About 2/3 of the way across the page where it says annual budget of $40,000. 40,000 was budgeted there for consulting. It goes on all the time. That's what I was saying, that the budget did not include, because it had been authorized the prior year. It wasn't encumbered and added in, even though it's on record as the money being for that purpose. So if we encumbered it last year, it would have said, let's say, I'm going to say numbers, $240,000, because we knew the comp plan, the most expensive it would be was $192,000 or something like that. So that's the budget, why the budget doesn't match, and why we're making an adjustment now. We went ahead and put the consulting fees when we paid the bills in the consulting category because that's where they belong. We hired Ardura as a consultant to help us build the comp plan that was authorized in 22-23, and the money was set aside for that reason, but it wasn't listed in the budget. So now we're bringing the budget up to match agreements that have been previously made, or instructions, I should say, by council. Does that give you any better understanding of what I'm...
No, because it was previously, it was encumbered previously as we received that grant in 2022.
But it wasn't ever listed in the budget as an encumbered item.
I understand that.
So you're right, it was...
This bill's already been paid. So, and it went from, it went up significantly just in the 15 days, according to what this adjustment looks like, from 40 to, or from 190 to 208. So, I mean, that's an additional $18,000 apparently we spent in a few days. But either way, without this adjustment being notified, and it should have been done a long time ago, clearly, but we don't have a description of why we're putting all of that into consulting and why we wouldn't pull from other areas instead of just taking it out of reserves and utilizing it like, whether we had it in professional management or capital improvement or portions of that, like we described when we utilized the EDC money of the 46,000 and then pulled the other 76,000. That in conjunction with the others should also be made in those changes.
So the reason is, the money for that was set aside in 2022 to 2023, fiscal year 2022-23. So when the money didn't get spent, which I know we talked about some other items this way, when the money didn't get spent, it goes over, it stays in the bank. We don't spend it. We didn't put it into last year's budget, which we could have as an encumbered item. We didn't do that. So it's just been sitting in the bank. Fortunately, it's been earning a little interest for us while it's been sitting there because it took some time for that project to get completed. And then it got paid during this fiscal year instead of the previous fiscal year. So now we need to, you have to document that you paid it in the budget. So we already paid the bill, you're right. It's already, but we have to document it within the budget document for record keeping and open communication to people.
Technically, to amend the budget, you have to take it from a place, you can't just say, well, I'm going to take that out of savings and stick it over here in this to cover this already spent money. You have to have it in a different bucket where you adjust that bucket when you're adjusting a budget. Otherwise, we're approving, I hate to use this term, but we're approving illegal action. Because we've already spent the money. We can't just pull it out of the air and say.
Well, we're not pulling it out of the air, but we are documenting it in our end of year budget and where it belongs is in consulting. And then that money needs to go from the accounts that are recommended into regular operating. So it was paid, let's just say it was paid from operating. Because we have to pay the bills as they come in, you can't just let them be late. If money needs to be moved from where it was sitting into regular operating, then this gives us the authority to do that.
If we approve it, it does, but you also don't show,
That's what I just-
the only other question I have is, you don't show any adjustments for income, interest income, which you just mentioned was quite a bit. And we don't show that revenue as it's just kind of sitting there. We don't show the interest income, we don't show any kind of additional monies that may have been acquired to pay for those, or where we transferred it from EDC, A or B, wherever, to this particular expenditure. So based on this, it looks like we're moving $208,000 to cover the consulting alone. We're moving another $140,000 into capital improvement. So now we're looking at 140 and 280 of over expenditures on a project that was supposed to cost $185,000.
I'm trying to follow you, but.
Well, I mean,
All of those
here's
things
your
don't go
ARPA money,
together.
your
So
secondary
if you want to
change.
talk about the ARPA is grant money. It's in an account all by itself. So on paper, for the budget, we are noting that the money for that project, not ARPA, I'm sorry, yes, ARPA. They got me saying the wrong word, so I apologize for that. The ARPA money is grant money. We started this project because we had grant money. So this documents in the budget, because it wasn't added to the budget previously, it needs to be added into the paper budget and therefore the paper trail.
And do we not account for interest income, is my question.
We don't typically add interest into a budget as a year-end adjustment. You could do that in a year-end financial update. This is how we performed last year, that sort of an update, but it's not, you don't go back generally and add that in a budget adjustment. Really what you're doing is making sure that if you had categories here and there that were over or under, that's normal. But if the total for each category, if any of them are negative, you want to update that. And the requirement or the goal is to end them without any of the category totals being negative or overspent, without some documentation about it.
With all due respect, I completely disagree. On this particular budget I'm looking at, you show an interest income totaling $2,400. If you have an interest income, of over $50,000 on whether it be Cedar's accounts or the ARPA grant money that was in fact put away for the majority of 2 years to in turn produce that income, you have to show that revenue so that when you're just, it's not here. I mean, there's $2,400 right there. So we're talking about a $50,000 difference that's not shown as far as revenue on any kind of document as far as an interest income. So we're not showing you the income at all.
Okay, so if you'd like to make an additional budget adjustment on another date to address interest income, we can sure do that. But right now, what we're trying to do is address the 3 items that are significant and hadn't previously been listed in the budget document.
Another question. We, all year long, have put all of Jamie's expenses into miscellaneous, and then we made a budget adjustment and put that up into human resources. Should miscellaneous also be a part of this group here?
I know what you asked. If you want to go back up to that same first page at the beginning where I said, we'll go back to that in a second, on the page that says Exhibit A. Right under administration, the gray bar that says administration, where it says payroll first and then human resources. I listed payroll so you could see that we're ending the year about $180,000 unspent. And the reason that's an estimated number is because the final payroll for September wasn't closed out yet. So budget remains 189. I made a note that it's $180,000 approximately available. so that within that category, if you need to pay for some other line, you can, and you still don't send your total to category negative. So the next line down is human resources costs. Budget remaining when we ran this was $79,355. We're expecting up to or approximately about another $8,100 in expenses that are not here yet. So the recommendation here is that you transfer $88,000 from that line right above in payroll to human resources in order to right that balance so that it won't be negative. So you're taking the money that's dedicated for paying people, and we're paying a contractor instead of a direct employee, is why they're in human resources as opposed to right in the payroll line.
But you're saying you want to take it from payroll now, so that you
As a
don't have
budget
to-
adjustment, yes. So we're saying we didn't spend all the money in our payroll line, so we're going to spend some of that in our human resources line, we're posted there, in order to, because it's a significant number. We don't actually have to do that adjustment at all because the category in total is not short, but it's a big number, and for transparency, it makes it easy for people to see.
She'll want to pull it from
Mhm.
payroll to pay.
Or why did you end with your HR so big?
That was brought in to do that role, correct?
But then you're saying it could have been done that way all along. It could have come out of payroll.
No, it still wouldn't be set up as payroll because she's not a direct employee. We're saying there's money in that budget line item that wasn't spent, so let's take some of that leftover money and spend it on the item where the line is short.
And miscellaneous doesn't have to be accounted for here.
So we took those and moved them at your request that we make it more transparent or easy to understand, so we moved those already out of miscellaneous to human resources.
But that would be part of a budget adjustment.
No, that was a correction. Just correcting something from the wrong category to the right category. The adjustment is when, Julie, you want to jump in and give us a
Okay.
better definition? Because I think I'm just leaving some word
That's
out
okay.
that might be helpful to folks.
That's okay. So the reason why you have the human resource costs is because Jamie is contracted with Texas First. Texas First handles everything from the taxes, the so forth, whatever. The actual payroll general ledger fund is for employees where the city handles all of the things that have to happen with the IRS and so forth, and insurance or whatever we offer to full-time. So per your request, I removed everything from miscellaneous that I was paying for Texas First and so forth, and I moved it to the human resource costs, which did not have an actual, it had a $500, I believe, budget. So we overdrew that budget with the anticipation of taking the money from the payroll because we didn't have any employees for quite some time, and adjusting it to human resource costs. But for transparency reasons, we can't combine those two because when an auditor comes in, they need to know that human resource costs is not payroll because she was not an employee. So what what the mayor is asking for is to remove some of those funds, transfer it to there so it doesn't show a negative line item when you go back for previous budgets and look at it. So budget adjustments happen at the very end where you're balancing out and closing out books. But books, again, won't be closed out for the year for probably another 30 days because invoices are still coming in for this budget year or haven't been paid or haven't cleared or haven't been posted. So what she's asking is to take $88,000, which is going to still leave you plenty of funds in payroll, and move it to human resource costs, which the goal is to not have that next year because you're not going to be contracting an employee. So it's a one-time adjustment.
So glad you said that.
Council. Sorry.
motion that we table this until it is complete, as we do have 180 days to finalize it, and if it's not complete, there's absolutely no reason we should.
We've included the 8,100, which are pending invoices that are going to be paid from that line
I
item.
understand, but there's still some expenditures and interest income that is not included. So
Well,
we can
interest income is-
finalize the year. I'm making a motion that we table this until it is absolutely final, as we have 180 days to finalize it.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. For further discussion, I would like to clarify for the council that this information is as complete as it possibly can be. We've estimated every expense that we think will come in. We didn't just do that wildly. We used expenses that have come in, history, what we've paid, we've called vendors, we've gotten final bills quoted over the phone so that we can make the best estimates. There could be something that's however many, a few dollars more or less, but we are making the very closest we possibly can so that the recommendation we can make the big adjustments and be nice and clean to go for this fiscal year. Is there any further discussion about it?
And can I
Yes.
add? So I do need to check with FundView because with adopting a new budget and when we adopt it on the system, we somewhat have to wrap up any adjustments on the previous budget, but I will verify with FundView. But these numbers are as accurate as possible. It's just a matter of days or whatever it is to get it into the system or whatever needs to be done. So when we're asking for the adjustment from payroll to human resource costs, I've already reached out to Texas First and say, hey, what is pending? What do you have? And that is the number that came back that we just have to like verify. So you're actually just moving that adjustment so we can close out books and move forward versus just having this on the table every single time and preventing moving forward on, new work that needs to be done. So it's not going to adjust your budget numbers anywhere. It's just taking it from one category to another, which you have plenty of funds. You have 189,000. So we're asking to move 88,000 so we can close out that line item and post the rest of the transactions, and you will get a final, statement saying that these are the end of the year numbers. So that's what we're asking for, not this is the end. We're just asking for to check that off the list so we can close out that line item.
Thank you, Julie. Before we go any further to the vote, or maybe there's more discussion, but I would like to add that there is a page that you haven't reviewed yet, or that we haven't reviewed with the group. That's the very last one in this group of supporting documents. It says, keep Simonton beautiful. The green box is KSB budget adjustment. Because there is one other budget adjustment to request. They all pick what they want. Happens. Let me see if I can get to the bottom without giving everybody some sickness here on.
It's just, I understand the numbers are not maybe all going to exactly add up, but since we did not receive it until just a few minutes before the meeting, and we got some good explanations, but I'd like to digest it.
I also put it on, I'm sorry, go ahead, take that in.
Just that we've got time to do this, to go and look at it instead of doing it.
I think we have plenty of time tonight to stay and go through every line if we need to. We certainly don't have to do it that way, but there's nothing that says we have to be here at a certain time. Let's add about KSB. This one is a recommendation to transfer $2,093.64 from the City of Simonton KSB operating account ending in 433. Keep Simonton Beautiful did not hold the Christmas home tour event last December, so their account that they have earned previously. So our recommendation here is that we would take money from their own account to fund their shortfall in the budget this year.
Again, I have to make the same argument there, because on the budget, they have $6,000, which matches clearly there, but they don't show a full accounting of revenue from the events that they did have, or the sponsorships that were just brought up recently in last week's meeting. For that matter, we didn't even know those existed until that, or I didn't. I don't claim anybody else did. Nobody knew that they were receiving these sponsorships values of, $3,500, $2,500, and we always knew that they had $6,000 in the budget. But to say that, according to this, again stated, but not that dated, they had only spent, let me not misspeak. Yeah. They had spent $1,800, and now 15 days later, they've spent $6,000. Well, no, I'm sorry. They've spent whatever the difference is between $8,000 and $1,800.
I'll answer this, Mayor. So, correct, because we are lacking a city manager, there are things that should be done that it's a learning process. So the 2950 was actually in community outreach, which was identified, and I moved it to keep Simonton beautiful where it belongs. And again, so with the spring roundup, you can look at that, and I worked with FundView to get this all corrected. You can see that there is $5,900, and I don't have my glasses, under community outreach plus some additional expenses. That is your true accurate for KSB reconciled account. The sponsorships are included in there. The $3,500 that you're talking about was approved from council to was the decorations for the decorations. So that's where that was a one-time council approval for decorations. The rest of the income, and I can't see over there, is going to be sponsorships, donations. For example, I know Christy Smith had over a $350 donation, but that is your final reconciled balance for KSB.
Again, with all due respect, what we received on 9/13, I know you've made adjustments.
I did.
Understand
They're
that.
all
I understand
adjustments.
that. But as of 9/13, in office supplies and postage alone,
Was
they had
$1,852.
$1,869.05.
Right.
That was the only expense
Correct.
without zero revenue counted.
Correct.
So no sponsorships counted. There was just $6,000 sitting in this account, right? That we didn't spend, or of that, excuse me, I don't want to misspeak again. Of that, we'd spent as far as KSB is concerned, they had spent $1,869. This budget adjustment is also not showing those revenues, including sponsorships that were received in addition to what was already in that account. So it's not showing revenues, any kind of revenues that were made during events that were had, clearly not the ones that were had.
It's there.
It's okay.
But on the adjustment, it's not showing, it went from $1,869 on office supplies to $83.37 on office supplies. That's a big difference on this budget adjustment. And now it says that we've spent $2,100 on office supply and postage alone for Keep Simonton Beautiful. And then it says, but there's no expenditure, no explanation, I would say, of $5,900 that just appeared.
No, that was a tent. That was a tent.
That was one tent?
It's two. You have the spring and you have the Christmas. So again, with KSB, I spent a lot of time working with the trainer at FundView to get this balance and reconciled, because these are things a city administrator or manager typically would handle and move forward. So it is also a learning curve. So what we did is we did a complete audit, and I placed those items in the right bucket for general ledgers. So when you have the $5,900, you're looking at Christmas roundup and you're looking at spring roundup. The $3,500 donation that you are speaking of, it was approved by council for Christmas decorations. And then the rest of the sponsorships were added into Keep Simonton Beautiful. Again, I can't really see up there, but it's going to be your miscellaneous income.
It was also booth fees, the or vendor
Yeah,
fees.
vendor fees.
That's what I'm
Fees that we
saying.
pay, they're included there.
The revenues, as far as 13 or
Right, but so
9,
you're looking at something that's 2 weeks old,
That's
and she
2 weeks.
just told
I
you
just
that
did it.
she's.
I've been working on it.
Since then.
I-
No, like, let me finish, and it'll make sense. Current year budget is what we budgeted last year. It does not show any remaining revenue, any new revenue that came in during those events. So any kind of, maybe interest that was earned on the $6,000.
There is
that's
no
not sitting
interest
in
on
this
this account, it's an operating.
But there were sponsorship fees, there were booth fees, there were sales of different things, whether it be sponsorships or whatnot during those events. And it makes passing this premature.
She is showing you on
This
this,
is income, and it's, you want to look at the income page for KSB, like prior to it, the 5805 for year-to-date actual under income, other revenue sources, includes all of those items.
Okay, well,
So that's the update that is, that was updated since you all saw it earlier in September.
that only furthers the point. It shows that this additional $6,000 that they have already had in this budget that we budgeted last year would be increased by 5805, if that's your true revenue.
but we spent that money on tents. The
Okay,
tents alone were
But as far
5,900.
as the budget goes, the estimation this time last year was that they would bring in $6,000. They only brought in $5,805.
We
So
budgeted
that's what,
$6,000.
but the city doesn't fund that money. They earn their money. They don't get $6,000 from the city coffers in their budget.
They
They
absolutely funded that money, because that's where we gave them the $3,500 for Christmas decorations and everything.
The
Different.
3,500 was something outside of that, and additional that was approved in, I forgot what month it was approved at a council meeting, so that was post creating the budget.
So
And
it would
had
be
nothing to do
additional-
with the original.
It would be additional income, that's the whole point. This is just
So
super
they're short
premature.
of their income because they didn't hold one of their typical events. They didn't have the manpower for it, the Christmas home tour.
Right, but it makes this number, the year-to-date actual, incorrect, unless you're on the adjustment side of things, is all I'm saying. Because you're saying there, it's $6,000 that we were annually budgeting for, they actually spent $5,800. You're saying here that we actually annually budgeted $6,000 and that they need another $2,000. So that financial statement basically debunks this adjustment all the way around.
Their budget is an estimate, but the city does not fund any of this.
I'm aware.
We just handle the reconciling piece. So we said they're gonna raise $6,000. When we went back in and put booth fees, sponsorships, whatever we entered into the system, it came out to that 5,800. But their expenses, they had greenery for $1,860 something dollars. They had ornaments, and then they also had the 2 tents. The 2 tents alone was $5,900, but their income that they raised, including the $3,500, was only, it was short. We didn't even have enough money to pay for the tent.
The $3,500 you're speaking of was approved by
And that was
council?
transferred, and that's included in
I
the
understand.
KSB.
But the 3,500 I'm talking about,
Uh-huh.
not we,
That's part of the sponsorship of
It is part of
$5,800.
the sponsorship fee that is received from the sponsors that sponsor those events.
So-
And that's what we've never seen before. So this,
So-
it's just premature.
They
This
only
needs to be-
raised $2,300 estimated.
So they only had $2,300 worth of sponsorships, is what you're
Or
saying?
booth sales or whatever they did. That's all they had as income for KSC was roughly about $2,300. The majority of that $5,800 came from the $3,500 that was approved by council. So they did not hold, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but y'all didn't hold one of the biggest sales that y'all had, which was the home tour.
We do it every other year.
Yeah, every other year, so they did not have the income to even support the tent. In addition, they bought Christmas decorations, roughly 20, I don't have the number right in front of me, roughly 2,100 or so forth. So what they fundraised, let's just say fundraised, was not enough to even cover the tent, more or less. So they're asking to take it from the money that they already have in their account. It's not touching the operating, it's not touching anything. This is KSB's money that we balance, their available balance has enough money to cover this amount, the 2,300. They're not asking to take it from anything that belongs to the city. Other than the fundraising from the past, they want to use their funds to close out this budget and start fresh. So they'll know what the budget looks like going forward.
So either of you all have additional questions? Do we want to go through, I mean, this is 40 pages long, I don't all back up for all the things, I'm happy to do it.
I can see what the expenses were and where, I'm good.
All right, so we have a motion to table and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor to table?
Nay.
All right, that motion fails. Do we have a motion on the 4 line items that are recommended with the accounts that are listed? And I'll
make a motion to table.
thank you, Justin.
I'll second.
You have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Me.
No. Okay, we have 3, 4, 2 opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll get the adjustments ready to execute. All right, I took my book apart. 1 second. All right, the next item under new business is budget adjustment for 2024 and 2025. That's the new 21-cent budget that has recently been adopted. I believe the very next page, it said 5P in handwriting on the top right corner, but it might have a hole punched through it. It's a single page from the 21-cent budget. It says 21C at the top. So the current budget has $0 for internet. It's the third line item down, 100-40-5301. And about the sixth line item down, 100-40-5304 is telephone. Those items are both 0 in the new budget. That is where,
This is the same budget that you just asked me this morning and yesterday to look through, and because you couldn't figure out where the difficulties were, or where the differences were, that's not accurate. There is absolutely money in there for technology, telephones, internet, all of it.
okay, but it's in other line items. What I'm saying is these 2 specific line items where we pay our telephone and our internet are 0. So we need to,
They've never been paid out. On what, on the council reports that were given, they are paid out to administration, not facilities.
so you gotta look farther enough down in the budget to look at the individual expense lines. Let me get, I was gonna show you on the 23, 24. 100-40, not far enough in. We also, as we've been auditing and getting ready for closing out the year, Julie did find that internet and telephone had been placed under technology. Is that, I'm trying to remember from.
Let me just re-verify where it is placed, and I'll tell you where we decided to allocate. Give me just one moment.
Well, this is just an example from April. AT&T is, it says 642 is being paid out of the 10, the administration general fund, not facilities. And every month it comes out of the administration technology.
Right.
So the phone, the internet, all of that comes out of the administration budget, not facilities. They've now taken it out of facilities.
So what I was going to say is, while Julie and I have been auditing the budget, trying to make sure things are in the right place, the money matches, all the things, you're right. This was...
It was coming out of technology, which is 110, 50, 30. We have identified we're going to move the phone to 140, 5304, and the internet needs to be moved to 140, 5301, which will happen in the next few days as soon as time permits.
So you can see it. Sorry.
Why move it when it's been there for?
Because it doesn't really belong in a general for technology. It belongs with telephone and internet.
You just
where it was budgeted and then we posted it in the wrong place.
That was
So
an
you can
error.
see up here, if you look on that third section and 2 lines, we'll talk about internet, 3 lines down from the lowest gray bar. Under internet, we budgeted $6,700 for internet right there on that line item. That's where we should have posted it.
Okay.
Instead, we posted it in technology, causing the technology budget to be over, which it should be big.
We'll go up.
So then 2 more lines are 3 down for telephone. You see we budgeted for telephone here as well and posted it in the wrong place. So that's why these notes out here that I've included show the category that it's incorrectly moving from and then what the new balance is for each account once we get there.
So go up to the 10 and see what's budgeted up there. Because
10, 50, 30.
You can put it
Yeah.
one place or the other.
Correct.
But what you've done before is doubled it. You've got it in both places.
Okay, see, technology is the 3rd line down.
And there's
And the notes
20,000
over there? Yes. But if nothing got moved to where it belongs, technology would be overspent by $3,800. So the proper thing to do is put them where they belong when we discover we've been making an error. So we're just moving them to a different line.
And then this is another account adjustment where they were being billed, they were paid out of the wrong account, so we've got to adjust that and put them in the correct account on the phone first.
Yeah, it doesn't really take any other money to be allocated to it because the money is there. It just got posted in the wrong line item. So that would correct it.
I'm just saying that it was doubled in you got it in the administration and technology. If you're going to put it in, facilities. If you're going to put it in facilities, then we need to take it out. We need to zero it out in administration.
Do you
There's
have
no
one?
reason to have it in both
Could
places.
you look at the technology line item about the items that belong there? It's 100-10-5030.
So with the 110, 50, 30, as the mayor stated, that is correct, that I have been placing the phone and the internet into that general ledger bucket. But it was identified that the phone should actually be plugged into 140, 5304. So I have my list, I'm gonna work through and I am gonna move those transactions for the last 12 months, whatever it is, to get it into the correct bucket.
So if you don't mind, one of the examples you and I uncovered something that belongs in technology
Is,
that originally was budgeted there is FundView.
FundView, Impress Computers, let me look at the rest of them, I'm sorry.
While you're looking for that, Philip, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes.
On our agenda here tonight, it says this is listed as new business. We just passed an ordinance that's illegal because you're making adjustments here and you're trying to make adjustments here on a budget that was passed at 21 cents in the line items as processed. This is not how it was processed. This is not how it was processed, and it has not been filed with the county clerk. We have until the 5th to do that, I believe, maybe the 7th. But still, this is not only premature, our agenda doesn't say we're taking any kind of action on it. This is not based on an ordinance. We're talking about something that is not, it's no longer up for negotiation because we've already passed a 21 cent budget. That was balanced and in the categories as they should be. And that's how it was passed, correct?
I presume so. It wasn't at that Monday meeting.
Okay, so when we pass that 21 cent budget, there is no room for, we're gonna move it here or move it to this category. We kind of have to come back to something that looks similar to this when the time comes, if we want to move it to those categories. We passed the 21 cent budget in the capacity of the line items it was done.
Yeah, it would need to be an ordinance to amend the ordinance, i.e. it would need to be an ordinance to adjust the 24-25 budget to account for change of line item or funding code or whatever. So budgets can be amended after they're adopted, but it takes an ordinance to amend
And we don't have
the
an
budget.
ordinance attached to this one. Correct? We have an ordinance attached to this, but it's also not on here, so I'm confused. I'm just making sure I clarify
Well,
because,
since this is my agenda, I'll address that. It's on here because these two particular items, if we're gonna pay for them where they really belong, their budget line items say $0. I'm not intending to turn off the phone or the internet service tomorrow. I'm trying to be clear that we're asking for some adjustment. We're gonna need to have a consensus from council about whether or not we're gonna be open to working out how phone and internet are managed and paid for so that we don't just have to turn them off at City Hall because that's what our budget dictates. So if the consensus of the council is, we'll be agreeable to looking at technology to move it, the money for that into the telephone and internet line items, then that gives me the direction of what we work on. And that I don't need to do something dramatic like turning off service. That's the question.
the money's already there, Lori, and we've adopted a 21 cent budget in the capacity.
Clearly, we adopted the 21 cent budget, and this is a request after the budget was adopted. So this isn't saying anything negative about the 21 cent budget other than we need an adjustment in order to be posting things and paying things from the way it's intended and the way it's written.
If you want to put that in technology in the 40 category, then we need to also adjust the numbers in the technology on the 10, 50, 30 and lower
Correct.
it.
That's right.
Okay, so if we do that, that's fine. Because you've got to do that to make the balance.
Correct.
Yeah, you
But I
can't
can
just
just
change.
Yeah, no, I think,
that's
so-
why we're bringing it for consensus.
so my understanding at the next meeting, there'll be an ordinance for budget adjustment that reflects the reduction in the technology code that's currently under 10 to the technology code that's currently under 40 with the intent that that pays for AT&T and internet. Wait, AT&T, yeah, telephone and internet. Right, is that, okay, and so that 10 technology budget had the intent to pay for internet and telephone. It's now just a matter of line item, if you will. And so, okay, so that's what the adjustment in the ordinance can show at next meeting. But I think what the mayor's asking for is just to make sure, since that was the intent, if she goes ahead and pays the AT&T bill, and you know that then the budget adjustment's coming, doesn't have to turn off the service, obviously, because you did intend to pay for it. It's just in a different area, and it's just an accounting line
It'd be
item.
like, we're not going to pay for Jamie.
Right.
Because there needed to be a line item adjustment.
Correct, and that's why we're adjusting now those items we've paid. It's come from funds that were available. Now it's just a matter of aligning it with
Yes.
the proper funding line item.
Yeah, as long as we make the adjustment out of this one where it was being put in air all for years and to put it over into 40.
Right, and it's not creating new revenue, or it's not anticipating new revenue.
Yeah, it's not creating an adjustment, you're just utilizing a different line item in the budget that it is accounted for within.
Right. The revenue is anticipated. It's just an adjustment.
Yeah, right.
Mayor, to answer your question, the things that come out of technology is going to be like Granicus, which is our peak agenda. You have Impress computers. You have general code. So those are just some examples of things that come out of the technology group, FundView, so forth.
Thank you for leaving that up. So the rest of the council, just want to make sure that we have consensus about phone and internet when you keep under operating. Kelly?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. All right, item C. Discussion and action to approve CenterPoint Energy 2025 compliance tariffs. We actually recommended that we do not take action, but I wanted to bring you up to speed about this. You have in your packet a letter. I'm really sorry, y'all, what I've done to my packet. 1 second. So you have the original letter from CenterPoint Energy asking us to accept their tariff for natural gas. Just prior to that, you have an email that came to us from Jamie Malden. The law firm is Boyd Gosling. You've heard from them before. We are part of a group of cities that work with them, and they work specifically with this energy industry. And you can see their recommendation is that there was some discovery and some intent to change calculation methods that was not shared during the time of the negotiation, so they are recommending that we do not accept that rate at this time. It's called a challenge to the rider calculations. They continue to represent us and other small cities. And more information will come in the future about that. So there's no action to be taken, but there's plenty of information there if you'd like to read about it, learn about it, and we could certainly set up a call if you wanted to get any questions answered about it. This is a typical thing that the Gosling firm represents us and gives recommendations about the rate calculations and when we have to accept and when something is done really well and when it needs a little more work. All right, item D, discussion and action to approve tent rental funding for Simonton Christmas Roundup. In your packet, you have the invoice from the tent company, H&R Tents and Events, $2,950. KSB is planning to hold their event in December, and they'd like to rent this tent again. It certainly helps out with the weather and a feeling of community at the event. With the budget adjustment that was just approved, KSB still has a little over $4,000 in their account, their KSB operating account that ends in 433. Do you have additional, since you're the president of the committee, I probably should let you deliver that part, sorry.
This is something that our vendors actually appreciate every time we do an event because it does bring us all together, and we don't take a risk of our personal tents just flying off or whatever else. It has been a very, I don't know how to say it. It's been great since we induced it probably, I think, 2 years ago. And in fact, we've increased our vendorship since we started doing it. We used to be between 15 and 20 vendors, now we're closer to 20 to 30 vendors because they appreciate what we have to offer. So I do ask that we all approve the $2,950 for the tent for the December 6th Christmas roundup.
I'll add that Twinwood has agreed to allow the KSB to use their location account, but they don't expense for that. So So their primary cost is the cost of this tent.
And we are having the home tour this year, so we will have the additional funding that we didn't have last year. Like I mentioned earlier, we do the home tour every other year, which does bring us a considerable amount of money into KSB.
And since KSB has no budget, they need to come and ask for council permission to make that spend at this time.
This number here, you're saying that that's what they have left after the approval of the adjustments that y'all just did, right? This invoice says that due now is half of this cost,
Right.
obviously dated September the 24th, that's within this year's budget, and then the remainder would be paid in next year's budget? Or are you to be saying that this $29.50 is coming out of this?
So KSB is proposing that they're willing to spend from their savings, their account, since they don't have a budget yet, they've still got money ready to go. The event is in the new year, the new fiscal year, so they are proposing to spend money in the new fiscal year. So
But they
no
still have
additional.
No money has been spent to this point. if
No,
what
that's,
you're
no,
asking.
I'm just asking to understand which one, because this invoice is dated September the 24th, which is in last year's year, and it says this half is due now. So is this total coming out of what they have left, or is that just getting swept somewhere, and we're approving $29.50 from some other?
$29.50 is
general
coming out of this
It's
total
total.
right here.
fund? Okay, well then we don't need to approve it, right?
No, according to your budget, KSB has to run everything back.
No,
in.
that's why I was asking, I was just asking, we don't need to approve it if they're gonna take it out of that. If they wanna come to us for the spring roundup and do that and present a budget and all that good stuff, then we would need to approve it. But if they're paying for it out of that, we don't need to approve it.
Well, you do, because they don't have a budget. If they had a budget, it was in the documented 21-cent budget, there's money, but that doesn't mean they have a budget. They have
Right.
0 budget line items. So they can't just spend money without council approval, even though
That's
they
what
have
your
money. in the
budget
bank.
did.
No, that's not what my budget.
That is what it
This
is.
budget right here says they have $4,036.44 left in their bank account. They want to spend $2,950 of it, it's not my job to tell them they can. In the future, if they would like to spend an additional money, it's kind of like giving your child an allowance, right? If they want to spend that on that particular amount, then they've got the money to spend. We don't need to approve this one. In the future, if they want to pay the whole $29.50 right now, it sounds like they can, because this invoice was dated September 24th. So they can pay the money, they've got it, and then in the future, we can also go for the, if they need one in the spring, or if they need one next year for Christmas, then we would address that then.
Any further?
Nothing further.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I make a motion
Thank you.
to approve the $29.50 for KSB's tent.
Second it.
We have a second from Councilmember Boudreaux. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, motion carried. That's it for new business. We do not have an executive session planned for today. That'll take us to item 9, reports. I was just going to share with council and everybody that the construction project at City Hall is moving along.
It looks great, by the way.
Thank you
Just
very
driving
much.
by.
Looking good. I have to give a kudos to Vetra Hevlinka. They have so far done a great job of managing the project. They're staying in close contact with us and with the contractors. They just today closed up the wall that was being improved or extended next to where the bathroom, the men's bathroom is currently. And since they took down the hole, they've been closing that manually with metal every single night. So they work all day, take it down, and then before they leave, making sure that they're keeping us secure until our new garage doors come in. So just an extra step that I didn't have to remind them they're asking for. They're thinking ahead and doing good work so far. The bathroom in the garage, the existing garage, has got its metal framing up, and the council chambers have metal chaining and sheetrock. So there's no date yet, it's too early for that, but it's moving along well. So just wanted to share about that. They also have had a couple of contractors make recommendations to try and help us save money where we could. For example, there's a vent that was on the end of the building previously. It was in the blueprints to change that out and use one with a motor and a different kind of regulator in order to keep the fire trucks from getting too cold when they have water in the tank. It's not necessary. We checked in with the chief. He was perfectly fine about that. And so that saved us about $1,000, which we can spend on something else when overage comes up or something like that. So they're doing a good job of trying to just make sure our money gets well spent. In other reports, we have some, I think 2 new homes that have been permitted in the last about 6 or 8 weeks. We have some already on the ground under construction. We have one that's been permitted to rebuild. That's been empty a long, long time. So good activity on that front, and people are definitely interested in continuing to move out to Simonton, and we're real happy about that. That's it for reports from me. Phil, do you have anything for council? Nancy?
No, you're on.
Julie? Council members?
I do. Just a reminder that Sunday, 8 a.m., for volunteers for the cleanup, storm cleanup, we'll meet at the park in Valley Lodge, and we'll just, disperse from there. Right now, I believe we have 4 houses with trees that they need help with. We are still asking for volunteers, even though we have a great deal of them, but we need more tractors is what we need. So if there's anybody with tractors and willing to work for a few hours on Sunday, that would be much appreciated. And obviously, if there are any questions, contact me directly or through KSB or contact any of the POA members. And that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Our next council meeting is on Tuesday, the 22nd. I think that's the 22nd. We'll be here at 6:30. Sir? Tuesday, the 22nd. I believe. Yeah. Almost looking verified. I didn't write it on my sheet. Yeah, Tuesday the 22nd, 6:30 here at the Fulsher Simonton beautiful building for the ESD. And with that, it is 7:39 and we will adjourn.